You're listening to Heart Matters on ReachMD. On this episode, we'll hear from Dr. Anna Barac, who is the D'Aniello Chair and Director of the Innova Cardio-Oncology Program at Innova Heart and Vascular Institute. Dr. Barac will be sharing some of the latest clinical data on cardio-oncology to come out of the American College of Cardiology's 72nd Scientific Sessions and Expo. Let's hear from her now.
It was an absolutely fantastic meeting with excellent cardio-oncology content. Probably from science perspective, the most exciting was to see that a cardio-oncology trial was selected as a late breaker and presented on Saturday morning by Dr. Tom Nealon, who was the co-PI with Dr. Marielle Sherrod-Crosby. It was a trial that investigated the effectiveness of using statin. So it was a placebo-controlled randomized trial of 40 milligrams of atorvastatin as a primary prevention of cardiovascular dysfunction occurring with anthracycline treatment, specifically in patients with lymphoma. So what that trial proposed and the rationale for the trial were small prior studies, both in humans as well as animal studies, suggesting that statins could attenuate left ventricular dysfunction that can occur particularly with higher doses of anthracyclines. And they tested this hypothesis in about 300 patients, all treated for diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. These patients typically get about 300 milligrams per meter square of doxorubicin, and they randomized them to placebo or 40 milligrams of atorvastatin at the beginning of the treatment. The primary endpoint of the trial was the proportion of the patients who developed LV dysfunction, which was pre-specified, and that cardiac function was, by the design of the trial, determined by cardiac MRI. The primary endpoint of the trial was positive, so more patients, there was an attenuation from about 20% to 9% of development of LV dysfunction, although LVEF was only minimally different between the placebo and atorvastatin end of the trial, which was at 1 year. So overall, positive trial. Another important take-home message of that trial was that patients who were enrolled in the trial were not our typical cardiology patients, meaning our typical patients who would need statins otherwise. So all of those patients were actually excluded from the trial. So the patients who would meet criteria based on their elevated atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease score, or because they have diabetes. So if they have any guideline recommended indication for statin use, they would have not been randomized as part of this trial. So the trial really took patients who did not have high cardiovascular risk, with the exception of receiving anthracycline. So it demonstrated feasibility and it demonstrated good safety. The tolerance was very good. And I think it's exciting to see positive signal towards less patients developing LV dysfunction.
To access this and other episodes in this series, visit reachmd.com/heartmatters, where you can be part of the knowledge. Thank you for listening.